Here we go. Here we go. You gonna say hi? Carol's here already.
How do I do?
Oh, I meant to ask you something before we went on the air. Too late now.
Did it have to do with hunting?
It did actually. You can try to remind me later. It was about hunting.
Huh?
It was
It
about
was about hunting?
It was. It really was.
Cool.
It was an interesting thing I've been reading in a good morning, Miss Carol. Teddy, ouch! Let go of me.
She got your
Eddie
arm
says
again?
hi, but he was being a bad boy. It gave me an ugly look there. Maybe he didn't want to be a lion. Damn it, Daddy, I'm a smile on. How's Carol this morning?
Good morning, Miss Carol.
What I was going to say, and is it has to do with
You're already yawning.
It has something to do with Peter Hathaway Capstick book I'm reading.
Death in the Long Grass.
It is. That's it. You got that right too. Well, that's good.
There, he's got several of those. There's a whole series of those books.
Yeah, he's got. I used to. Hey, John. Good morning.
Good morning, John.
Yeah, he used to write articles in the back of one of the hunting outdoor magazines I used to get growing up, and I can't remember which one it was now, but might have been Field and Stream for all I know. But it was, one of those. That's how I found him.
Back when we used to get a subscription.
Yeah, back
and you couldn't wait till it come in the mail.
And read it cover to cover. And in the wintertime, you had to, or when, no hunting season or you couldn't get out of the house, you read them all over and over again. So you'd be ready for fishing season and that kind of stuff.
And just tortured yourself for months on end.
That's true. That's one way to look at it.
I always thought of it like we were a bunch of dang monks putting on hair shirts or something. Or beating yourself on the back with a whip, whatever they call that.
Yes. Flagellation?
Self-flagellation or
something like that. John says fishing is elbow to elbow this morning. He had to leave. It's crazy out there with the full moon. People are nuts. When were you out there, John?
I knew we had a full moon. We're cloudy, but I can feel
it. we did. We had one last night. I noticed that when I came in. So what's running, John? It sounds to me like there's something going on. Because it gets that way in some places around here when the stripers are running, but that's usually in the spring for us. Got a 49 incher on Tuesday. Well, that's a nice fish. 43 pounds. Good morning, Mike. I was just getting my measuring tape out to measure how much snow we got last 2 days since oh Lord. 15 centimeters. So that's about 3 inches, right? I think that's about 3 inches American.
There's 2.54 centimeters in an inch.
So that's about 3 centimeters. 3 inches then. Striped bass, all big ones can't keep them. Oh, really? Is that a slot limit or just a size limit or just the time of year, John? Oh, Michael, geez, sorry about the snow. Yeah, we talked about snow the other night. Mike said he thought they were going to get some.
My buddy from Montana, he sent me a picture yesterday. They got dumped on. He lives up by Great Falls. We had like a demarcation line, thank God, in the state. We had kind of from my corner up to the northeast, everything below that line, south and east of that line, didn't get much. And everything north and west of that line got pounded.
I think there was some snow along the border up there, like Montana and lower Canada parts of it. I think Mike said the other night they were getting snow. 28 to 31 inches one day. Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm
one a day was
still talking snow.
We're still talking fishing. I thought, for a minute, I thought he was saying they'd gotten dumped on.
Like New Jersey got like 28 inches of snow.
One tag per year, one fish per day. That's pretty.
That sounds like those big reds. If you go fish for redfish down in Texas or something, you're only allowed to keep one. You get 2 tags, I think.
Oh.
And you can only keep 2 of the big, big ginormous red, like 50+ inch reds. You can keep a lot of smaller ones.
I didn't know they got that big. How much does one weigh?
Oh, they get ginormous.
Oh, okay.
But they've got a slot limit down there on redfish, and I don't remember what it was, 18 to 25 inches or something. You can keep a limit of those every day, but you can't keep fish below it or above it.
Above, yeah.
You could keep 2 above it total for a whole year. You got 2 tags on your fishing license.
Just like a deer tag or something like that?
Yeah. So when you buy your fishing license down there, they've got 2 tags attached to it that are detachable that go on your big, if you want a big trophy redfish, And I've seen guys like fly drones and things out there off the ocean and, looking for those fish and I don't think they're allowed to fish using that device, but they just run it out there and just look, and there's just thousands of those giant reds running,
Wow.
It's like, well, you'd think you could keep 3 of them, but maybe not.
Yeah, we can't keep redfish, red drum here, but can keep black drum. They get up to 80 pounds. Damn, I didn't know they got that big either.
They call them the big uglies.
Yeah.
And they are big and ugly when they get up giant size.
Hey, there's Doug. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Doug.
Mike said he only saw 6 accidents yesterday. Or about that. Everybody does forget, Mike. And you'd think up there they wouldn't, but I'm glad to know it's not just down here, because down here Nashville was even worse. But if they even talk about snow, people start running off the road. I swear they do. They just go nuts. Oh, I'll tell you something else, Mike. Tell me if this happens up there. Down here, every time they used to say this on the weather reports. They talk about, it's going to snow, so people should
go. They run out of Wonder Bread.
Yeah. People would run to the store and buy bread and milk and to make sure they had stuff stocked up. And you go to the grocery stores after one of those announcements, or it was going to snow, and there wouldn't be any bread on the rack, milk was all gone. It was crazy.
And it'd snow 1/4 of an inch.
Doug, we were talking about giant black drumfish that were up to 80 pounds and ugly and don't taste good, and they got a lot of worms.
Just look up, Doug. Look up black drum, big uglies, and you'll see pictures of them, and they're big enough, but they're sure fun to catch.
Yeah, there's a lot of those things that are fun to catch.
And the little ones taste good.
What was 55 Mike? I missed something there, or maybe how many days until the trip? Oh, okay, 55. I got you. I'm gonna look that up because I want to see if I remember what they look like.
Was Doug going to Africa?
He might be going to the Animal Kingdom in Florida. Black drum, everything big ugly. I just want to see an image. Oh, those aren't. That's not. Well, that one is.
Big zebra stripe looking fish.
Oh, so they are striped. Some of them are striped, huh?
Yeah. When they get big and ugly, they kind of lose their stripes. But
Okay, I thought somebody was showing a picture of a peacock or something in there.
and the sheep's head are striped, but they're not.
They don't get that big though, do they?
Well, they get pretty big up in John's country.
Well, I have a question, a fishing question, John and Mark, because I've not been down in a long time. John says little ones we
They
call
call them
croakers.
croak.
Yeah, freshwater drums will do that too, John. Well, you probably know that, but and Mike says pre-COVID people would panic by that. I thought during COVID people really panicked by. Oh, I don't know what he's voicing his text, and it's not. It's just kind of it's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of, and they have sheep's head up there too. So I have a question, John, and since Mark knows about it, I haven't fished down there in a long time. Many years ago in Florida, if you fished in the ocean, you didn't have to have a state fishing license because the ocean was the ocean. It wasn't part of the inland fisheries. Now they include coastal waters and do that too. Thank you, babe. And they
Well, they have a whole different division of a whole different agency that does inland saltwater fishing in North Carolina.
Oh, do they? That's different then.
It's separate from their game and fish department.
Yeah.
And they have a license you got to buy. If you fish within, I think it's 15 miles ashore, you got to have a license.
Yeah, I think Florida changed their name to something like it used to be freshwater. It used to be game and freshwater fish, and now it's includes saltwater. Their name does. It didn't used to do that.
I think once you get outside the line,
well, yeah, you probably don't there.
I don't know if it's just territorial waters or what it is. Once you're out a certain distance, you don't need anything.
First time I went down there and did any fishing at all, I asked about a license, and they all kind of looked at me funny and said, "Oh, you don't need that down here as long as you're fishing in the ocean." I thought, well, that's kind of cool.
When we went to the Yucatan and to Belize, there wasn't anything there at all in those days, but it's changed now. But
who'd you do that with?
I'm trying to remember who went with me. I can't even remember right now. It wasn't Tim. He wanted to go.
Just when you were in Arkansas?
Yeah, between. Hi, Zoe. Good morning.
Hey, Zoe.
Oh, my God.
Mama, get up. Noise stop.
The dogs I turned my mic off because the dogs were all excited.
Oh. I heard Zoe or somebody.
It was all 5 of them running
Oh,
around my feet,
the whole herd.
acting like they needed fed again or something.
Ah. Mike says Walter experienced his first snowfall yesterday. He's not sure he liked it. Well, he'll be big enough to walk over a bunch of. Wait till he gets out there with the Bassets and they're under the snow and he's standing over them. And Mike says, "How's the foot? And how long did the doctor recommend you stay off it?" Then you have to ask him, Mike, is he?
Well, he can recommend in this hand and do something else in this hand, see which one fills up the fastest.
Let's see.
But it looks like a rotten peach.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's got some nice colors to it, Mike. I saw a picture of it yesterday.
And it hurts clear to my knee, so
I'm surprised it don't.
I guess your foot goes clear to your knee.
I'm surprised it don't go clear to your butt. I mean, all the way up to your hip.
Now they told me I tore all that tissue between the tib fib.
Mike says, "Oh, where'd he go?" Mike says he just kind of threw that in there. You knew that was gonna stir something up, didn't you, Mike?
Please don't overdo it. I can't. It's not allowing me to.
Right now, he's not anyway. But he is going to be making a trip soon. Fortunately, he don't have to walk all the way there. That'd be kind of bad. I bet you wouldn't. I bet snowshoeing wouldn't be any fun with that leg. I don't know if you could even do it.
I think my wife just laughed at that comment. Maybe she was laughing at something else, but when you said, I bet snowshoeing won't be any fun.
See. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that ain't happening. So I found this really cool.
Yeah, tell that story.
I found this really cool stone bead just before, like 10 minutes before I did that.
You were a bad boy.
And a lot of people have told me that fellow's probably missing that bead. My wife found a really nice arrowhead at the exact same location a few years back, like a really nicely made point. And I'm wondering if there's a guy there. Because I found this cool stone bead. And some folks have told me, tie a little red cloth to that and put it back. and tell him you're sorry.
Sorry, guys. Breakfast was a little late this morning. It'd be interesting. You ought to watch that spot regularly so you can see if there's more coming out.
Yeah, but I'd be scared to death to touch it. I guess I could photograph it.
Oh, did they, Mike? I didn't know that. Where was he? I can look it up, but
he was dead. That's where he was.
Oh, was he? Well,
yeah, they found him dead.
That don't surprise me.
John, I wore this shirt just for you, buddy.
Wait a minute. Stand back up a minute. I'm surrounded by ice holes. I get that. What's it? Bing the Ling?
Ding-a-ling.
Ding-a-ling. Ding. Okay.
It's a burbot tournament. Ling cod tournament.
And where's that? If it's ice fishing, where's that at? On the
Up at Labarge, up just north of the house here. So we had, Johnny Bait Bucket and his brother decided that they were avid ling fishermen, and we had them naturally in the Bighorn drainage, and they got tired of driving over there from Carson to about a 2-hour trip to where you could start finding ling. So they brought a whole bucket full of them back with them and put them in the Green River drainage, in the Colorado River drainage, I guess, upper Colorado River drainage. And we have them all over now, and they're doing just exceptionally well. And they're not doing well in their native drainage.
And that's all. It's funny.
And so that they have, the department has these big tournaments. Like, well, they're not even legal to release alive anymore over here. So if you catch one, it doesn't matter how big or small, you got to kill it.
They're trying to get rid of them.
And I'm like, the fish division people think about life different than wildlife division folks do. And
true.
And I'm like, well, why don't you just put them back in another big bucket and take them back over there where they belong?
Where they're not doing as
well.
Where
they're not doing so well.
So why don't they do that?
Well, they're worried about, transfer of disease and all kind of, fish division stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
What?
Dead Carol.
She asked if they found that guy dead or alive.
Oh, yeah, he was dead. And I had heard that he'd shot 13 people, and then I heard he'd shot like 24 people, and I guess it was 18.
Was it 18 died or 18 shot?
Shot, I believe.
I did hear that at least one count said that he actually shot more people in his second location. I thought he shot more people at the bowling alley, but he didn't. He shot 5 or 8 there, and then he shot like 11 or something at the other place he went, or killed that many. I can't remember. I saw the numbers. They did change a little bit. At one point, the day after it happened, 18 people dead, 50 to 60
Holy
people.
buckets. Wow.
Well, he was a firearms instructor, so I'm guessing he was a pretty good shot.
Yeah, for the Army, and then he went nuts.
Yeah, then he went nuts.
And they put him in the Hooskow or in the facility for a while, and then kicked him loose. I need to get a warmer on the black juice.
Black juice. Good morning, Brenda. What kind of technical problems you having? That's what was going on, Mike. I didn't keep up with it the last day or so. Well, I just didn't catch all the news. Mike saying he shot most of them in the head, so they were a little hard to identify.
Great.
He was really mad at somebody.
There they go.
Is that Penny?
And Boudreaux. And then there's the old woman came in there and like yelled at both of them and told them to knock it off. Zoe doesn't like them fighting around her feet.
I can imagine.
Huh?
I can imagine she doesn't.
Hi, Red Dog.
Now they're going to fight around your feet.
No, they're fighting around Mama's feet now. They got her. Literally, like surrounded.
Okay, Brenda's doing good.
Good morning, Miss Brenda. She was having technological difficulties.
Yeah, Mike said I have plenty of girlfriends leave me, wouldn't make me go to that and do that. No, I got you, Mike. What in the world? Oh. I thought you were saying something. I thought you were bragging about how many girlfriends you had there for a minute. Mike, while we got a minute here, tell us about this. Mike told me the other night that he had found a trailer, a horse trailer. He might not want to talk. He might have been saving that talk while Diana was in here, so he wouldn't have to tell her by himself. But. So what did you find, Mike? Or maybe he didn't really. We can, but I don't think Diana would really appreciate it.
Did you procure it, Mike?
That sounds serious, Mike.
That will just definitely mean that we're a bad influence.
Boy, howdy. Boy, I really thought we could sell her on that idea.
I saw that.
Didn't actually have signs for sale, so I think the farm that Diana loves is somewhere in the tropics.
Well, you can run horses in the tropics.
Do what?
You can run horses in the tropics. They do it all the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. She could probably not move. If she waits a couple of more years, she may not have to move very far south to be in the tropics.
I'm still waiting on the data for that one.
Well,
I want to see a positive movement in that direction. It hasn't happened here.
Oh, no, but you're in that anomaly.
I'm a geographic anomaly. 2 weeks from everywhere. Literally.
I've been there too. It is.
I don't want FOP. I'm a Dapper Dan man.
Well, I ain't got Dapper Dan.
But I can order it and have it to you in 2 weeks.
What was it they needed for the car? Because he had to get
Here's
that
the
out.
part for the car, and he said it'd be a couple weeks. And he said, "Well, then give me some hair jelly." And he brought out the fop, and he said, "I don't want fop. I'm a Dapper Dan man." He goes, "Well, I can order it for you, and it'll be 2 weeks." Why ain't this place a geographic anomaly?
2 weeks from everywhere.
Oh my!
Oh, Doug, we'll see you, buddy. Have a good
Go.
day wherever you're going. Diana says, "Me too, especially since we got about 4 inches of snow." Well,
I'm a supporter of global warming too, Diana. We could sure use a little global warming. It was 17 yesterday morning. I don't know what it was this morning. I didn't even look. It makes me sad. Don't play that one, Paul. That one makes me cry.
Makes me cry. Hey, boys, what do you think? Let's play Don't Hit Grandma or Hit Grandma
with a great big stick.
With a great big stick. No, Paula, it makes me cry. Yeah, it probably ought to. Did you know, and I have this from a good authority, so I do believe it was probably true, that at one time, I think it was Tennessee, and I used to know an old lawyer that told me these things. But he said that at one time there was a law on the books here. I believe it was just here. I mean, it might have been other places, but I think he was talking about Tennessee. Anyway, it said that you couldn't beat your wife with anything bigger than your thumb, bigger around than your thumb. So
really,
your wife with something smaller than your thumb, like a steel rod or something,
or a switch or a ramrod,
but you couldn't beat her with anything bigger than that. So I guess that was how they were protecting women.
Wow,
crazy.
That sounds like some rule that came out of Ireland or something.
Maybe. Land of the shillelagh. Hey, Tina, catching up on something.
The old
Oh, no. Sorry. Who's in the ER, Tina? You? Or Chuck?
Uh-oh.
Just dramatic pause for effect. Chuck was. He's better now. Well, push him up to that Philco radio, Jordan, and listen to the show. That'll make him feel better. And a 1 and a 2. I'm glad he's okay, Tina. I don't know, what's going on, but I hope he's doing okay. That's spending an evening or even a few hours, and you can't do it without spending a few hours in an ER or anywhere is not pleasant activity. I've been there, done that. Yeah, you were talking about your not you, but Brad when he smashed his hand,
and then he smacked the doctor,
and he smacked the doctor. You talking about he had to wait a couple of hours. When Phil had his motorcycle accident, I was the only one around that could go check him, go, be with him because his sister didn't live close by, and his mom couldn't get out and go, and she called me and asked me to go check on him, and so I went to there and I sat with him in the ER. They had him out in the hall. They didn't have a room for him or anything in the emergency room, but they did have him on a bed. I don't think they had any choice there, and but he was just rolled in the hall, and I think they brought me a chair so I could sit with him. And wait a minute, where? Brenda, what are you saying was all there was a law still in the books about slavery? Oh yeah, there was. That was till last year they had never actually taken it off. I think was how they put it. But they finally did last year. Anyway, I had to sit with him for many hours. And when they finally got there, the doctors were all like, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. And the orthopedic guy said, yeah, and I get him first because I got to fix that bone or it's going to not ever heal. And he ended up winning the argument because they also had to take out his spleen, and I don't know what else they did on his insides, but they had to fix that. But I guess the orthopedic part outweighed all that because if you don't, he had a complete break just in the upper and the humerus, and they said if that gets anything infected, dirt, anything gets in that, and I think it was protruding outside his body. They said it may never heal. And you know what? He had to go back and have that thing redone because it didn't heal. Even with the strap on it and everything, it still was loose. It's really weird to get up and move your shoulder bone. It's flapping, but down here nothing. Just waving all over the place because he couldn't control it. It wasn't really funny, but it was kind of funny when he told about it. But the emergency room part wasn't any fun. I don't remember what time I went, but I was there all night and up into the morning before I finally left, and that's when his sister came. But he gave me power to sign shit and make decisions for him.
And so that's why he's now Philippa?
Wait a minute, what?
You totally missed that. I said that's why he's now Philippa. Because you could sign some stuff.
Yeah. Not really all that shocking care when you think of all the laws lost to time. When you think of all the laws lost to time, they should go through the law books on a regular basis and do it. Yeah, they should. There are a lot of things. You're right, Tina. They should go through there and clean house on a lot of that stuff. And and the thing about his was what cost him was somebody breaking a law. I mean, I'm pretty sure Blount County has a leash law, so the dogs that knocked him down shouldn't have been running loose on the road. And they were big dogs. They were hounds. I don't know.
Blount County has a leash law.
I'm pretty sure they do. You're not supposed to just let them run wild at least in a subdivision. So that I think a lot of areas down here do, but anyway, but they didn't do anything to them. Of course, he killed them both graveyard dead, so they weren't going to do it to anybody else.
Well, how do you go chase a coon in that country anymore? Or what?
Well, that's probably different. I don't know. I don't know how. Well, the way they write coon hunting laws down here, that's probably, individual homestead areas because they seem to have a way to. Coon hunting used to be one of the most crazy mixed up things to enforce down here. Like every county literally had their own coon hunting season and rules. At one time, TWRA used to talk about it. They may have finally fixed that. I don't know, but
Well, we hunted them year round, it seemed like, or at least we chased them year round. But
yeah,
I've
my uncle
seen
did
pictures of that country now, and you couldn't chase a field mouse there anymore.
No, afraid not. So you've read Death in the Long Grass, right?
Yeah, I have it. I've got it. I've got Death in the Silent Places. I have there's 3 or 4 of them. I've got the whole set. I found a used set and I just bought the whole set.
I don't remember. Well, I don't know what year they wrote those. He wrote those. I don't know if it was 70s, 60s,
I think
70s.
it was 60s and 70s.
But I was amazed at the some of the. I guess you just say culling practices they had. Well, both amazed and not too surprised, I guess. But they put down a lot of elephants.
Still are, buddy.
On purpose. Yeah, well.
Still are. They still, like Botswana right now, they have exceeded carrying capacity by like a lot. And
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
They had done this partial ban on hunting in Botswana, and they've lifted all that. Because you get like 30 of those devils come through your little mud hut village. That's a bad deal. Can be, or through your garden or whatever.
Well, not just that. Apparently, they were just about to eliminate all their natural habitat. What was left?
Yep.
I mean, that's always a problem too. People intruding, but I guess it was getting bad, and they had he was telling at that time. I'm wondering if this is still happening, but they actually built a processing plant. What do you call it? An arbitral. I shouldn't eat and talk. Anyway, they'd built a facility to process those jumbos, as he referred to a lot of them, and then hand that meat out to local residents and workers and things in the not so distant areas. And they dried a lot of it into that, what they call it, biltong or something, the kind of like jerky. But I guess it's different. I don't know. I've never had it.
It's just jerky.
But they used to do that with elephant too, and they were talking about what all they did with the. I mean, I don't know. It's a weird thing. I don't know what they do with their ivory. I guess they keep it. I know I've seen pictures of warehouses full of it.
Well, and they were blowing a bunch of it. I have a guy that worked for our department. He semi-retired from Wyoming and went over and worked for Botswana for years. And they had he kind of built their wildlife department over there for them. And he He was like, the residents have to have some buy-in on these animals, or they're just going to make them all go away, because they were, destroying fields and whatever. And I think when Doug was over there, they were just putting ivory in like the big pit and taking C4 and blowing it up.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Because they didn't want to continue the trade in ivory. But they, he said it was a different deal over there. Like if they caught people poaching, they just shot them.
Heard that too.
You didn't have to go in front of the judge. You didn't get a ticket. You just got
shot. Yeah, that's a whole different thing. Nobody likes. Wait till he comes back. Sorry, guys. I got one more bite and then I'm done. Apologies.
Sorry, had a mad dog scramble.
I was going to say nobody really likes the whole idea of culling, but sometimes there's no other choice.
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
Well, I'm going to get started here so we can keep Chuck occupied. So he may want to see the screen though, Tina. I don't know. This is an exciting show. One that Mark's going to know a lot about.
We don't sound too excited.
Well, it's because we're just that kind of guys, understated emotions.
Stoic.
Heathens.
Heathens. From deepest, darkest Appalachia.
Okay, so Mark's going home or going to his folks' house in Ohio in a couple of weeks, or next week, this week, whatever day it is. Anyway, and one of the reasons he's going is because of the Marine Corps birthday ball that they have there locally that his dad is involved with or does. And you've been going for several years, haven't you, with him?
I have. Yeah, I try and go when I can, and I've made most of them in the last decade or so.
So I thought we'd talk about the history since it's their birthday's coming up. Okay, Tina, that's good. But since their birthday's coming up, I thought we would just try to do a history about them, so sort of. And then, of course, I learned that that's probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever come up with because there's just a lot to it. But I'm going to do the best I can. Hey, John, welcome back.
John's back.
We're going to talk about the Marines a little bit. I kind of figure I'll do the Army and the Air Force too, and that other form of Marine life, the Navy. Yeah, what's the matter? Hang on just a minute. He can't get out, which couldn't be a problem.
Who can't get out? Teddy?
Yeah, Teddy couldn't get out to go potty.
Oh, yeah, that could be an issue.
He was there crossing his legs and walking back and forth. So anyway, I found this
Come here, girl.
poster that kind of showed the uniforms of the United States Marine Corps from the beginning to the end, or to now, not the end.
Oh. There.
Hey, Penny.
Say hey. Okay, now go away.
Now go away.
Well, she was wiggling.
Yeah.
She didn't want to be in my lap.
Man, I don't know why, but not why, I forgot. I was meant to put a Marine Corps flag here. I put this logo or the emblem. So anyway, we're going to talk about the Marines. Mike wants to know if you've had any mooses in the yard or yetis.
No yetis, but the moose are here. They haven't been in the yard yet, Mike, but they're in the pasture.
Well, it's just a matter of time.
It is just a matter of time.
What's the best Yeti time of year to see Yetis in the yard? In case Mike ever wants to come down and look. Mike, somebody on the TV's been running a whole series about hunting Bigfoot lately. I started to record them, and so I could watch them and talk. Be more educated to talk to you about it. And
there's been a whole bunch of stuff on the news feeds lately of them sighting them in Colorado.
Did you see that picture? He was out in the middle. He looked to me like he was in sagebrush country.
Yeah.
And then he squatted down behind the bushes.
I need to put a camera out so I can take a picture of a Yeti in the yard.
Well, if you were the one that got that photo and you could, prove its authenticity, Mike and I'd say you were trustworthy.
Oh, Yeti.
Make Mike's day.
I think I probably already told this story, but we had that deer underpass project, and the University of Wyoming put cameras on all of our structures to allow deer to migrate under the highway. And the local biologist and I were trying to find us a Yeti suit so we could just do we could walk by the camera and in the Yeti pose, and then never say a word about it. And just see how they responded.
You should have.
We couldn't find it. We found a gorilla suit, but it just didn't look right.
No, that's not a good Bigfoot / Yeti / Sasquatch you look.
We've got people that have those silhouettes. There's a company down in Evanston there at the border. We went through there the other day.
Yeah.
There's a sign company down there that makes, cowboys on horses and stuff like that you can put out in your yard. And they've got Yeti. They've got Yeti silhouettes.
Oh.
And then there's one that's just up from the road from Mom and Dad's. There's a Yeti in a field, just kind of out there by itself. I've seen them, like, I believe, they've got the Yeti silhouette and I believe written out.
Yeah,
kind of like black painters.
Yeah. Grizzly bears in the east.
Mm-hmm. White buck deer.
Elk, which we have now, but maybe I can't remember if there was a mule
And
deer.
white buck deer, but not very often.
I don't remember if there was a mule deer up there with them or not.
Black panthers are really common now.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true, folks.
Which, if you live in Africa or in South America, you could see a black panther.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna start here. So, at least I think there's the leave a comment and subscribe stuff. So, the Marine Corps was founded on November 10th, 1775. Continental Congress had ordered 2 battalions of Marines to as forces with the fleet, with what we had for a fleet. Which part? Yeah, that was the squirrel, Tina, for sure. But Mike started it. He threw the squirrel out there. I think he's got a back poke full of them. He just keeps them for special times.
They were born in a bar.
Huh?
They were born in a bar. That's the coolest thing about that.
Yeah, I got that right here in a second. Marines have executed more than 300 landings on foot. This was stuff I took right out of their webpage on their history. It shows kind of events. And this is supposed to be a painting that was done obviously after the fact, but in that time period when these are supposed to be some of the first recruits. So if they came out of the bar, they might not have been doing such a great job. And this is the bar or tavern. Captain Samuel Nicholas sets up the first Marine Corps recruiting headquarters at Tun Tavern, or Toon Tavern. I don't know how they pronounced it. It looks like Tun
Tavern
in Philadelphia, looking for a few good men. And I've got a link there for this site where I got all this info. So if you want to check, I want to make sure I gave them credit there. But so if you want to check it out and go see any of it personally, you can by clicking that link. I believe that link it is functional. So yeah, this is the fun part. They kind of hung out and probably drank a lot of ale and did. This is probably where the whole Marine Corps Army guys thing started fighting right here in this bar. We're not liking each other or whatever the rivalry is. And probably the Navy probably got involved, and because they seem to always, be in the middle of stuff.
And Mike, you're probably right. They probably said, "We'll give you a free beer if you sign this paper."
Oh, I don't doubt that a bit. That's probably very true.
You sign up, you join for like 4 years, or the duration of the war.
And we'll give you this big tankard of ale here, or maybe a big rum toddy. But that's where they got their. This is where they got going. This is the birth of the Marine Corps was right here in this building. Once they were,
I think it's there anymore.
It's probably not. That's a shame. It's too bad they didn't. But no, back then nobody cared. I mean, if it got knocked down somewhere between here and there, they wouldn't care. I don't know. Do you know what year? I don't think I've got this. I don't know what year they officially started celebrating their birthday. Maybe they did it, or their anniversary, whatever you want to call it. But maybe they have been doing it from the beginning. But I wouldn't have thought so early on. So I'm not sure about that part.
Yeah, I don't know when they started. Probably after 1900.
So this is this is what they call, what they referred to as a legacy forms. And it's these things that I'm getting ready to talk about. I don't know if I left something off there or not. Don't look right. So this was the very first amphibious raid, and this was in 1776. and 5 companies of Marines landed in, well, I didn't have it written, in Fort Nassau, yeah, in the Bahamas. And of course, that was British territory then, and is, I don't know. And I don't know, I don't know if they still part of the Commonwealth or not. But anyway, they seized a bunch of gunpowder and lead and that sort of thing because the American Army was always in short supply of all that stuff. And then they had trouble getting, money from Congress to support the effort or whoever. And they were always having to, it wasn't too uncommon for American soldiers, be they Marines or otherwise, to be hunting powder and stealing, raiding places to get it. And then in 1805, the Leathernecks arrived at the Battle of Derna. And this was during the, I guess, the Barbary Pirates and,
yeah.
What else was going on? A lot of unrest in northern Africa. And they rescued a kidnapped crew off the USS Philadelphia on the shores of Tripoli. Ever heard that before?
Yes, sir.
They received the nickname Leatherneck because they were wearing high collars back then, leather collars that were protecting their necks against sabers from the pirates. The pirates were obviously known for using sabers, so they wore a leather covering around their neck to protect their neck. And hence they got a name, which stuck. And of course, the shores of Tripoli stuck too. Oh, I'm looking. Carol's, get yourself a beer. I got to catch up here, man. Mike said, get yourself a beer and get yourself a paycheck. All at the same time. Can't go wrong. That's right.
This is where the Mameluke sword came from.
Yes, this is where the Mameluke sword came from. I got a little bit about that too. And Carol said she'd probably fall for that deal. And then they're on a beer quest here. Probably too busy fighting a war. Well, at that immediate moment, they probably were. Yep, Carol, that's where the term leatherneck came from. Most of the things you ever heard about the Marines, it's because something they did. So that was in 1805.
Eleanor Roosevelt said that they had the highest morale, the cleanest bodies, the nicest uniforms, and the most filthy minds of anybody she'd ever met.
Well, they always say out cuss a sailor, out cuss a Marine. I think there's one more. Well, I always added aircraft mechanics. John says 3 free hats and a cot and free. Three free hots and a cot. Yes, that's right. Hot meals and a
free
cot.
Clothes.
And free clothing. Yeah, the leatherneck collar protects them from being decapitated. That's exactly right, Tina. And I see Mike is saying Diana drinks too much beer. And that sounds like a bunch of great guys to hang out with and have some beer with. Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm going to hold this slide for a minute because their legacy things that they did in this presentation kind of skipped over from this period up to World War I. And I think that's mainly because Mark and I were talking about this yesterday. The Marine Corps wasn't real busy through a lot of that time period. They were involved in some things. Well, when were they in Mexico?
In the 40s.
1840s.
1840s.
Yeah, so they did do that, which I'm surprised that's not in here because that's where the Halls of Montezuma came from.
Right.
You've heard that term before. Or if you know the Marine Corps anthem or hymn or whatever they call it. All those words are in there.
The hymn.
Huh?
The hymn.
The hymn, excuse me. And I think 3 frees and a beer was the sales pitch. Didn't mention wearing the leather neck collars. Probably didn't, Tina. They probably didn't push that part of it at that time because they wanted people to sign up. And then during the Civil War, they did very little. In fact, the Marine Corps was kind of cut down. And then they started realizing that they needed, Marines. Marines were primarily put on ships for 2 reasons: amphibious landings when they needed to go, do something on shore or make an attack, and the other reason was so they could board ships. If they had ships at sea or captured ships or whatever, they were the ones that did the shooting and the going across a lot of times.
Just swung across on the rope.
Yeah, that's what he said. And so they started doing that. So they, I guess, built back up to some level. But all the military forces. Well, we had I think this is the first time in history when we've kept such a large standing Army and Marines and Navy. There for a long time, we'd have a war and we'd have to start from scratch and get up to speed on the war and then finish the war. And then they would send everybody home and pretty much. And that went on for a long time. So that's in World War I, they had to have a huge, and I mean huge, drive in it. And what they call it, it's not an inscription. Anyway, the draft.
A draft.
And then, they went from, I read somewhere one time that it was just, the Army literally was down to just a few hundred people. And, by the time the war ended, World War I, which we were only in for about a year, we had a couple of million men in uniform. And, but Tina, but do they call that the inscription? Am I getting the word? I'm getting my word mixed up or something. They used to anyway. We don't say that much anymore, but there was a word they used to use. But anyway, so all that happened, and then World War I came along, and well, they were in the Spanish-American War. That Marines were heavily involved in that. In fact, Marines charged up the hill at San Juan with Teddy, but you don't hear much about them. Unless you go to the Marine conscription, that's it. I was close. I just had the first 3 letters.
Inscription would be you wrote down about them.
Smart aleck. So anyway, we'll move up to World War I. But I didn't, they didn't have anything listed in this, and I wanted to use what they had in here. So this is all from the Marine Corps actual website, and so we got to World War I, and lots of things happened and came about with the Marines during World War I that, again, you don't hear much about unless you're a Marine. And one of the famous battles that the U.S. took part in over there was the Battle of Belleau Woods, and the Marines were heavily involved with that. They went over with all the other doughboys, but they got their nickname over there because, and this one, and I've got a little bit more about it here in a second, but French, they were supposed to be in support of or alongside French forces, and the French forces started retreating, and the Marine Corps didn't, and I'll get to that. I'm going to get to that just in a second too. But because they fought so tenaciously, the Germans started calling them devil dogs, because they just wouldn't quit fighting, and they thought they were cheating, kind of, hiding and shooting, and because that's what we do, and so anyway, that's where they got that nickname. And then there's some other. I got a couple other things I want to talk about that in just a minute. And then we got a little bit more. They got things. The more things started happening in '42. Obviously, we were in World War II, and they developed an air support ground team at Guadalcanal, and basically, they worked out their system for having low level bombers come in and drop bombs on fortified positions, and use machine guns to do that. And I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Devotion, but that's kind of some of that is what that's about. They were still using Corsairs propeller airplanes in the early part of the Korean War, and they were using them, for ground support, dropping bombs and trying to, a guy calls in an airstrike, and they come in over their heads and what they call close air support, and they kind of worked that out, and as a tactical strategy, they captured the Japanese airfield at Guadalcanal, and after that they were. That was the way they did a lot of things. They worked together on that. They still do. The only excuse for aviation in any service is its usefulness in assisting the troops on the ground. That was said by father of marine aviation, Alfred Cunningham. That one I didn't. I mean, I knew they did that, but I didn't know that they're kind of the ones that invented it. But of course, that makes sense. And then in, I think, '45, we've all seen the Mount Suribachi, and the flag raising. And most of us know they actually did this, and then they did it again for the camera. It was kind of a funny thing that they wanted to get a picture of it, and the Marines that were up there raised the flag before the photographer got there, and they took it down and did it again for him. So some people give them a lot of crap over that, or did for a while, but I don't think it matters. But they did it, and then they did it again. That's just what they did, and they were giving them credit for it. These battles on these islands, if some of you have read or seen book or movies, and the Pacific series that ran on HBO or whatever did a lot of this, and
if you want to learn about what these boys did over there, that's the series you need to watch.
Yeah, I've actually not seen it all myself. I want to do that. Hey, John's got to leave. Yeah, see you, John. Probably already gone. There was a really good movie came out about the battles on the island. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the name, but there's been several. But there's been a couple in the last few years.
Well, there's an old movie that Richard Widmark was in that's called From the Halls of Montezuma.
Yeah,
and it's about Peleliu, and it's good, and very, and we were a lot closer to the actual event when they made that movie, and I think they filmed it on the island, and it's
did they?
It's a good one, and but the Pacific is the Pacific, it's the Marine Corps version of Band of Brothers, I guess. It covers the Japanese theater instead of Europe.
Yeah. It was just called the Pacific, I think, Tina.
And it was Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks again.
Yeah, they did. They did it, directed it, produced it, whatever they do.
So it's a multi episode series, just like Band of Brothers.
What was it as many as Band of Brothers? I think Band of Brothers was either 10 or 11 episodes.
Yeah, it's just pretty much the same length. Okay. But it covers everything from Guadalcanal all the way to Okinawa. And it's a little different in that it picked out like a handful of guys that had written books about that campaign. It followed just them mostly, like Eugene Sledge, the Sledgehammer.
The Ken Burns thing on PBS, it was just called War. They kind of did that too. You
Yeah,
saw
and that
that,
was a
but it
good
wasn't
one.
just about the Pacific; it was the whole war.
But it was a good one too.
Yeah, it was good. It was well done. Of course, all his stuff is well done. I think. I thought Tina said something else. Let me look. Oh, they'll look it up.
And then Clint Eastwood did 2 movies about this battle, about Iwo Jima. One from our perspective and one from the Japanese perspective.
Yeah, I can't remember what that was called.
This is the only battle in the Pacific where Marine Corps casualties outnumbered Japanese casualties, although we killed them all, or pretty much all of them. But there were a lot more Marines that landed, and it was pretty awful.
Yeah, that was those islands. Well, most of the main islands that they had to go into and clear basically were pretty tough battles over there. They were. It was different than Europe. I mean, it was just. I guess you'd have to say jungle warfare, but it was. And the island hopping aspect added all kinds of problems too. But
yeah, they battled the elements just as much as.
Yeah. And then, of course, there was the 1950 Korea broke out, or that war broke out, and we got involved, and the Marines were over there. And I guess one of the most famous things about the Korean War and battle is concerned was the Chosin Reservoir, and the Marine Corps held out. I think it was 17 days. Or 16 or 17 days that they couldn't get out. They were basically surrounded by the Chinese at that point. And again, in a way, you can almost say they saved themselves by their rifles. Marine Corps soldiers are told, from the day, I don't know, maybe day one, that regardless of what else you do in the Marines, you're always going to be a rifleman. And I mean, they really consider that, well, their job. And so they're usually pretty good at it, using their weapons. And they held off several different times. I mean, Bella Woods, that's more or less what that was all. They were able to basically sit there and pick off all the Germans and repel that whole attack and stop, maybe a major movement in the war, which was, such an awful stalemate anyway. And then could have broke through and if they had broken through, I believe part of what they were trying to do was there was at least a rumor going around that if they signed an armistice or a peace treaty, any land that they were still occupying, they would get to keep, or at least they were asking for that. So they were trying to occupy as much land as they could, or up to a certain line that they started at. But they'd been pushed back from something like that. So they were trying to get some of those areas back so that they could try to hang on to them. But anyway, back to the Chosin Reservoir. Temperatures got down to 40 below, and the wind blew constantly. And there were 10. This thing said there were 10 Chinese infantry divisions, and
divisions.
Divisions, yeah, that's a lot of. That's a lot of. That's a lot
of folks.
Do what?
That's a lot of folks.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the first times that at least American armed forces were subjected to what they call a mass attack, or don't they have another name for that? There was just the Chinese they just sent waves. That's one of the ways they said it, of men in there hoping that they could just overrun anything that came up against.
Right.
And they weren't, a lot of them weren't all that well prepared even then, the soldiers they sent out. I've read stories about them wearing, they wore tennis shoes, which during the parts of the Pacific War in World War II, they I think they wore something similar to that too, because they could sneak up on people.
But it wasn't 40 below zero.
No, but it wasn't 40 below zero. But the Chinese, I've seen pictures of them with what looks like a warm suit, but I've also read that a lot of them didn't have that. And then, like I said, they had very lightweight shoes on, which weren't much count for fighting off cold temperatures. So they didn't. I mean, just to be perfectly honest, they didn't have it easy either. But they were just doing what they were told to do, or forced to do in the case of the Chinese.
A lot of them froze their feet completely off.
Yeah, they did.
And still charged the lines.
Well, they had to march in over the mountain range that surrounded Chosin, if I'm not mistaken, just to get there.
Yeah.
And so they had a rough go getting there. And like he said, they found soldiers that literally had frozen their feet off, and they were still trying to attack. Come here. Get up here and be quiet. What's got into you? You're whiny. I know that. Why are you suddenly so whiny? Huh? You're not gonna come up here and talk to Carol today? He's not spoiled or anything. I can't imagine what he's crying about. You don't get treated like a little prince, do you? Yes, he does. Anyway, Chosen Reservoir. I've got and I'm going to, when I get around to doing an Army episode, I'll talk about that more. But there was actually an Army group not attached to these guys, but part of this original attack or battle plan that was going on, because what they were doing was pushing the North Korean army back, and they pretty much had them defeated. And the hope was that they could reunite the country, but then the Chinese got involved, and they came over the line and came over the mountains and then thousands and thousands of them, and just tried to overrun everything. And it was a tough go.
Well, it was up on the China border.
They were up. Yeah.
China thought that the U.S., that MacArthur was going to invade China.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like, no, you're not going to do that. And was probably a totally unnecessary conflict. I mean, on that end of it.
Yeah, I don't think we had any plans to do that. It would have been kind of stupid. I mean, I'm sure we knew what kind of forces they had. Carol, don't encourage him. Where'd you go? Oh, he's getting him a snack, so he'll be all right now. I can't think about the Halls of Montezuma song without thinking about Gomer Pyle, because he used to sing that all the time.
Did you just say Gomer Pyle?
I did. I said I can't. I started to whistle.
My dad was so mad at me one day.
Because you said that?
We were dropping him off at the airport so he could go to Vietnam again.
Oh, well, I'd been mad
and
too.
I was sitting in the, you know, back in those days, you had like rows of seats at the airport and a little TV on every deal, and you could put a quarter in and watch television.
Yeah.
And I was sitting with four swabbies watching Gomer Pyle, which Marines in general weren't too fond of.
No, I've often wondered about that when I didn't know any. And
That's why Arlie Ermy picked that name to give his worst recruit. Your name's Gomer Pyle.
Hey, there's Francisco. Francisco, I was thinking about you this morning. I was thinking we hadn't seen you lately. Anyway, I'm gonna when I get to the Army, I want to talk about another part of this mission, because basically on the other side of the reservoir, there was a UN group that had a lot of U.S. Army personnel in it, and they were attacked also, but they got overrun. I don't know the details of that battle from that perspective, but they got pushed back. And a lot of those guys were in trouble with the cold and not having to stay up there for a long time. And again, frostbite was a major issue. And there, you want to say hi now? You want to say hi to Carol? Carol's watching you, and she told you to behave. Right, Carol? Isn't that what you said? You told Teddy to behave?
Francisco's been busy and working.
Oh, okay. So anyway, there's another side of this story that doesn't get told a lot, and I'm pretty sure it's a side of the story that affects my family. So we'll talk about that when we do the Army. My dad was in the Army, so during Korea.
There's a really good documentary they did about the Chosen campaign, and it's got a whole segment just about those boys in the Army that were on the east side of the reservoir.
Yeah.
And the trials and tribulations they went through to get back to. Wasn't a lot of them made it back.
No, they they damn near got annihilated, literally. And I'm not even sure who was in charge of them, because at least most things I read said they were in it with the UN delegation, or not a delegation, but a group. So somebody else could have been in charge. I'm not even sure about that. What'd Carol say? Hello, Super Teddy. Behave however you see fit. Oh, thanks. You most certainly did not, did you? I think she's saying that I told him to behave, so I guess that's what she's saying. I still say Carol told you to behave, okay? Not just do what you want to do, but do what I tell you, okay? He says, okay, as long as I can hold your hand. I wish I could record his purr and put it in a blanket. Big one of those heavy blankets. If it would purr, people could sleep. Oh my goodness! I think that'd put people to sleep like a sleeping pill. Okay, Mike. See you in a minute. Tina, can I sue Tim for slander? Mark's going to deny I said anything. I'll try to get Mike on my side too. Okay, anyway, back to the show. So, and then 1968, in Vietnam, the Marines had a major role in just about everything in Vietnam. And
they went in 65.
Huh?
They went over in force in 65.
And at the Battle of Hue, way.
You said you were going to say that.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but it's funny to me. And this was part of Tet. This was part of the Tet offensive when they had this major battle, and it was 33 days, and it was pretty much street by street, that kind of fighting. That what they call that door. Block by, that's not even how they say it. There's like building to building street fighting. So it was close quarters and just really tough and hard. and the Marine Corps played a major role in that to secure away.
They were the major role in that, and but they had to beat them out of every house and building in town.
Right, and that was
the historic capital of Vietnam.
Right.
That's where the king lived, and back when Vietnam had a king, the palace was there, and it was supposed to be kind of a center of learning and light, and this battle pretty much destroyed the city.
Yeah, as a lot of battles do. That's one of the things. One of the other terrible things about war is how much damage they do to people and history. Everything just gets blowed down. Tina says, I believe you can, unless Tim pulls the string, but I will testify for what I heard. Oh, my God. Well, thanks, everybody.
I didn't hear you say a thing.
Well, see, now, Stu on 2. I'll get Mike. I bet Mike's on my side. So one of the things when they talk about this, they're talking about kind of like major steps they figured out that became part of their not everyday battle tactics, but anytime they're in a conflict, they reach back into their history and pull these things out and remember how they did it. So that's going to lead to I believe the next slide, which is
this was the first like town fighting they did in Vietnam.
Right.
Everything else was out in the jungle or
and
in rice paddies
and they had to develop a whole street by street fighting kind of strategy, and they carried that strategy over. So today, as they say, the legacy lives on. Again, these are all their words. Multi-pronged modern warfare and Operation Desert Storm. And again, they kind of used some of these ground tactics and, of course, amphibious assaults and air operations when they were going in over there, or when they moved into Kuwait. And actually, I think it was Marines that first went into Somalia too, but because I know they came in off boats.
Yeah, they were in Somalia before. They had just left just prior to when Black Hawk Down happened, when the Rangers Task Force Ranger was over there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Adid, the dude that was the warlord that they were hunting in Black Hawk Down, his son was a Marine.
Huh. I think I'd heard that before.
I don't know if he was over here for school or what, but he joined the Marine Corps.
But he wasn't in that battle, though, was he?
No. But I think he's the warlord over there now.
Brenda, are you still on here? If you've fallen asleep, I hadn't seen you post anything in a few minutes. Yeah, they are, Tina. That's one of their mottos, actually, is first in or first to fight. And the Army Rangers like to say they lead the way, and maybe they do on certain ground stuff, but the Marines are usually the first ones in.
Well, they all have their own mission, and like
that's true.
If you wanted to take over an airport, an airfield, you'd send the Rangers in, because they're really good at that kind of stuff. And if you just want to like invade a country, you'd send the Marine Corps first. They like to say that they're the first to go and the last to know.
So in 91, they played a major role in Desert Storm, and then in 2001, of course, after the towers, Operation Enduring Freedom kicked into play, and they were over there. Within 2 months of the attacks on that, the Marines were the first major ground forces in Afghanistan. Of course, they were after Al Qaeda. By mid-December, Marine forces had captured Kandahar, created one of the first coalition command centers. You can see in the background there that they came in a couple of Ospreys, and that one looks like the motor's still crooked. I wonder why that is. Instead of straight up and down, maybe it's just a camera.
I think they're the only force that uses that aircraft.
They are, and they were the ones that really pushed to have it when they just about
quit building them.
Yeah, well, they were going to quit the project, shit can the whole thing, and pardon me, and the Marine Corps really wanted it as an assault, for that very purpose, and honestly, it does that job very well if they don't have any problems, and they've got most of the problems worked out, it seems, but every once in a while they still go down, and they don't really talk about it, so. I don't know. They had a problem early on with the engines and keeping them in sync to when they tilt and stuff. And I don't know if that's still a problem. And driving that, they got to drive that to make all that monkey motion out there and make that engine rotate and go up and down is a pretty complicated system. But it's a neat aircraft. And it's actually a very fast aircraft, which I didn't think it would be. I mean, to me, when I see one, it looks kind of awkward and
yeah,
it just doesn't look. I mean, it looks like a truck instead of a helicopter.
Hybridy. It looks hybridy.
Yeah, but
like
when they
between a helicopter and an airplane.
Well, it kind of is. I mean, basically, and when they take off and rotate out and get going in level flight, with the engines flat and pulling like a normal airplane, the props and the engines on that thing, they will outrun some of the small business jets that are still out there, but they're not. They've come out with newer models, but Cessna made something called the Citation. It was one of the first early personal business jets, and but they used to take a certain amount of flack because people said it was slow, but it was still a jet, so it wasn't that slow. And I went to school with a guy that worked on these things for Bell, or whoever else was involved. It wasn't just Bell. There was a couple companies. Anyway, he worked on these things and traveled with them everywhere they went when they were demoing them and trying to get them approved. And he said that they would outrun. They were traveling in a jet, a Citation jet, and he said the Ospreys always got there first. He said they were definitely faster. So I don't know what kind of speeds they were actually hitting, but it's pretty fast for something that looks like a box car.
Yeah.
And then 2003 into 2011, this back to that door-to-door, they called it expositions. I'm not sure exactly how that's being used there, but I guess to expose people. Anyway, they used the same tactics they learned in Vietnam in Hue. So, like I said, they were carrying on. It says, using street-level ground tactics first deployed during Vietnam, Marines in dense metropolitan areas like Fallujah breached, searched, and cleared areas building by building to root out the insurgents. So they've learned over the years, and they've continued to evolve and define their tactics, and they don't, forget how when something works, they don't forget it. And then after that, they went. Let's see what they went to next. Then they had a section called Stories of Distinction, and they kind of had this little thing about the Marines. But then the very first one they did of these articles was about the Navajo code talkers, and these are all three groups of Navajo in U.S. Army uniform that were code talkers during World War II.
U.S. Marine Corps uniforms.
U.S. Marine. What did I say?
Army.
Oh, goodness.
They were solely Marines.
Yeah, if I
But there was a
should,
ton of code talkers that were
right.
other tribes
Yeah, there were.
that were U.S. Army soldiers.
But the Navajo were all Marines.
Yep, but the Comanches and the Cherokee and the Creeks, and there was a whole suite of tribes that they used in Europe for the exact same thing. I wish they would do a documentary on all those guys.
Yeah, they don't talk about them much.
They just pretty much talk about these Navajo guys that were
Yeah, in
Marines
the
in the
Pacific.
Pacific.
But if you don't know the story of that, the reason that, hey, Tim, does Brenda ever get mad at you for calling her out? Let the poor woman sleep. Well, Tina, come on. Whose side are you on here?
I like the fact that she called her Brenda. I might have to remember that.
Brenda? I've got a feeling that Veranda's, let's just say she's away from her keyboard. I've got a feeling she might have slipped off back into Slumberland this morning. So anyway, I also put there's a video on their website about the code talkers, and so I put the link in for that. I don't know what it will actually take you to right now, but it takes you to the site. I'm not sure it opens the video, so you might have to go in and actually back up in the site and find the video. But they made a movie about the code talkers again in the Pacific with Nicolas Cage.
That guy, yeah.
I don't know how accurate it was or anything, but as far as I know, that was pretty much the first movie they'd ever done to bring their attention or bring the code talkers to people's attention, because a lot of people just didn't know. And they used Native Americans for this because, I don't know, at least 80%, probably more, of their languages were never written. So there was no key code, if you will, for the Japanese or Germans to help break the codes. They just had no idea what these guys were saying.
And it was based on their language, but it was still a code. It wasn't just like straight Navajo. I don't know how I can explain that. It was still encrypted deal. And they saved a lot of Marines.
So anyway, yeah, it was, but it was still Navajo, and that just made it even harder. So
yeah,
they as far as I know and read, it was unbreakable. The Japanese never broke it. I'm guessing neither did the Germans, whoever they were using. The only native language that, I'm sure this is not true now, but for a long time, the only written native language was some Cherokee because of Osceola or Sequoia created an alphabet for them, and that was the first written language that the native tribes had that I recall. But anyway, these guys were very important during that, and I've always thought that was cool that they and the Navajo Nation actually has a rich tradition, if you will, of joining the Marine Corps. A lot of Navajo, if they go into the service, they go to the Marines still. And I guess because of this and maybe some other things, and then we got the Munford Point Marines, and this is kind of a big deal because again, until recently, I'd never heard of this, but now they've started doing. There's a couple of documentaries out now, I think, that talk about it. But Munford Point was, I guess, sort of a part of Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, if I remember correctly. And it was the first place that they brought in the Marine Corps actively recruited Black Americans to fight and be soldiers, Marines, and it was at Munford Point. Munford Point, they call them the Munford Point Marines, but they were just Marines, and they fought in the Pacific. It's what my point is. These guys became integrated into the white forces, before Harry Truman wrote that amendment or law or whatever it was he did, executive order that said, the U.S. Armed Forces will be integrated. But the Marine Corps kind of did that first. They were, oh hell, what was I going to say? And Marx talked about this too, that they actually, once they got over there and were fighting and some of these guys were also in Europe. They fought in the Bella Woods campaign, I think, as a group. In fact, one of these, there's a movie there's two movies out that are about lost platoons or units out in like the Bella Woods. And one of them is about a black unit. And the other one has got Ricky Schroeder in it, who's not black. It's a different one. That may be the real one. The other one may not be real, or not totally fact based, but I think it's probably got some, factual content in it. But when I read about this, that's just another. I don't know. I think the Marine Corps just looked at it and said, we're missing out on able-bodied fighting men, and so
they went into the Montford Point boys went ashore with the Marines at Peleliu, which was between Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima in the Pacific. Yeah. And MacArthur wanted an airfield east of the Philippines so they could come back in. And then it turned out that he'd already landed back in the Philippines, and the whole battle was a waste and it was awful. But the Black Marines that went into Peleliu, they originally were ammo bearers.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very long till they were rifle bearers. And
do that or die.
And when they got wounded with, the White Marines, and they were transported out to the Navy ships, the Navy wanted to, do something different with them, like put them over there, don't put them. And the White Marines were like, these are our brothers, you put them with us. And they said, we only come in green. We've got light green and dark green. That's our people. And that was the first major integration of.
Yeah, it's really a big deal that
you don't Americans into the services before, like you said, before Truman did his deal.
I think that was in 1947 when they finally said they were going to integrate the services. And some people fought that like hell too, but the Marine Corps kind of already done it. So, and it proved that it could be done and would work because, at that point in time in our history, a lot of people still said you can't train black soldiers and they won't fight and they won't do this and they won't do that. And every time we have gone in and allowed them to fight like Americans should, they've kicked ass and always proven their mettle. They in the Civil War they did that on the Union side, and maybe even some on the Confederate side, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But then in World War I and in World War II, and I mean, it really was a ridiculous thing that we Americans kept passing up. I mean, I don't know. It's just crazy. And we did the same thing with other people at different times, but, but the Munford Point Marines were a big deal. And I was just reading this. They were from 42 to 49s when I guess this was an active base, but that was Munford Point is still there. And they But I don't know if it's active so much now. It may be, but it's not separated like it was written. Now the training point camps when they first started doing this were separated, but then that changed pretty quickly. Let's see. Chuck was just mentioning, the Tuskegee Airmen was another. And when I get to the Army Air Corps and stuff, we'll talk about that a lot more. But that was the same thing. People didn't think you could train. I hate to say this, but it's how they were. You couldn't train black men to be fighter pilots. And again, they fought that tooth and nail, and then they got them to Tuskegee, and they proved that wasn't right. Mark just left. And I do not know why. How disgusting that anyone would want to separate the fallen berets. Yeah, that's pretty sad. They did some parts in, of course, this was right after Truman. It's mostly Army, or partly Army. There he is. But during MASH, the television show, they did a couple episodes about integrating with Army in the hospitals, and how some white soldiers didn't want them in there together, and it was bad. Mike finally got back. I'm just in line at the gas bar at Costco. I'm only about the 20th car. Wow. Why is that, Mike? Is this everybody buy gas on Saturday?
You guys rationing in Canada?
If you are, I have not heard about that. So anyway, look up the Munford Point Marines. There's some really good stories about them there. And then we're going to move right into a gentleman that gets a lot of attention with the Marines, and that's Chesty Puller, whose full name was Lewis Burwell. Actually, I don't know where did the Puller that wasn't even his name, was it?
Well, of course it was.
Well, I thought he was Lewis Burwell, and then somehow they added the Puller. Okay.
No.
Well, anyway, he became
Burwell's his middle name.
Okay. Well, he became known as Chesty Puller. Do you know the story behind that?
It was just he was a big, deep-chested. I don't think he was that big. He could hump some country, and he was deep-chested and a bad behind.
Yeah, he was bad.
Notice I didn't say badass, but
yeah, good. I'm glad you see how good we are. We're not saying things like that. Mark, not anyway. The gas line can be brutal, but Costco prices are the best. I've never been to a Costco gas station. I have no idea, but the gas is a lot cheaper here for premium. Okay. And Diana says, I hope you have coffee, Mike. Oh, no, I'm all coffee through, but I'm thinking I might walk into Costco after and get myself a bowl for Polish hot dogs. You better take Diana some coffee, sounds to me like. Don't just say no, you're not. That ain't gonna work, buddy. So anyway, I'm just gonna read this.
So Chesty started out in the Banana Wars down in Central America, Nicaragua, etc.
Well, it actually started out in World War I. Was even before that.
Well, he joined right after Bellawood.
Oh, he wasn't at Bellawood. I thought he was.
No, he wasn't at Bellawood. He joined because of the typhoon.
Okay.
And then he went to the Banana Wars, his first combat, Haiti and Nicaragua, etc. And then he went to World War II, and then he went to Korea, and he was the head of the Marines at the Frozen Chosen.
Was he on the lake with them?
Yeah, he was the officer in charge of that deal.
Well, he was born in 1898 in West Point, Virginia, and he died in 1971. So, you do the math. At 73 years old, he is was the most decorated and venerated Marine in the history of the Corps, across 3 different wars and 2 counterinsurgency campaigns, which is the Banana Wars, so-called. Puller won 5 Navy Crosses. That's just unbelievable to me. 5 Navy Crosses, and earned an unrivaled place in the hearts of Marines as a quintessential leatherneck. Hard as the frontal armor of a tank, tenacious as a bulldog, courageous to a fault, and scornful of anyone or anything that did not wear the Eagle Globe and Anchor insignia. So he was Marine Corps all the way, buddy. And I've got a bunch of pictures of him here.
So Marines, when they get in Iraq at boot camp every night, say good night, Chesty Puller, wherever you may be.
Yeah, I've got that too in here. I found the quote, the official one anyway. But here's some pictures of him in different wars at different times, and here he is as a slightly younger man, World War II, and then this is 50 in Korea. This is Korea, and this is him cutting this cake with a Marine Corps sword. I can't tell which one that is, but it might be the Mameluke, or it might be the other. The other one is different sword.
Well, he's an officer, so he would carry a Mameluke sword.
Well, that's true. He would.
And I think
he cut the cake for the birthday. That's why I put that in here. I think
the birthday always uses a Mameluke.
Okay. And these are pictures of him. And this picture at the top left is during those so-called Banana Wars, when he was in, I don't know where all they were at down there.
He was in Nicaragua in that photo.
Okay. Yeah, they told who else he was standing here with, but I can't remember this other guy's name. Something Lee, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Anyway, and that's and he's with some of the locals that fought with the Marines down there, and I'm pretty sure this bottom picture is the same time frame by looking at the group he's with, and then this upper corner here is jungle fighting in World War II. So he did it all pretty much. I thought I had some more pictures of him. Well, be aware that they may pop up later. No, maybe that's it for now. I got more in a minute, I think. Anyway, then we're going to talk just a tiny bit about Daniel Joseph Daly. And he was born in 1873, and he died in 37. So he was a little ahead of Chesty. He was a United States Marine, and he was one. This fact right here absolutely amazes me. He is one of 19 U.S. servicemen to have been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor twice. Not once, twice. I didn't know anybody had ever won it twice. I didn't even know they put Medal of Honor winners back into the mix where they had that. I'm saying opportunity. That's not probably the right word, but that would be in a position to do that. But he's one of 19 different men that won that. He won his first one as part of the Boxer Rebellion in 1900. I didn't mention that. Well, Chesty wasn't around for that one, but that was in. We were over there kind of helping out, I guess, Navy boats that were over there doing
China. In China.
Yeah, in China. And then he was in Haiti in 1915, and that's where he got his second Medal of Honor. Daly and Major General Smedley Butler are the only Marines who earned 2 Medals of Honor in 2 separate actions. In World War I, Daly became further entrenched in Marine Corps lore when he is said to have yelled, "Come on, you sons of bitches, do you want to live forever?" to his company before charging Germans at the Battle of Belleau Wood. Butler described Daly as the fightingest Marine I ever knew. It was an object lesson to have served with him, and that's such a big deal that this is inscribed somewhere where new recruits come in or go out or something. I can't remember where they said this was. But come on, you sons of bitches! Do you want to live? You want to live forever? Was what he yelled at his troops to get them moving, and that stuck. It's amazing what people can remember in the heat of battle sometimes, but that one stuck. And this medal at the top is actually him getting a like a what they call it, cross de guerre, or a French medal, high French medal that I guess during World War One or after World War One. I guess that could have been Haiti. They were involved in that too, so maybe that was down there. But anyway, he was another significant figure in the Marine Corps history. And that, like I said, if you get something like this carved on a wall, where every Marine that comes through there sees it, that's pretty awesome. And then I just found a little picture of his gravestone, and I can't remember where this is at, but Daniel Daly, and it 2 medals of honor, Sergeant Major, Marine Corps, China and Haiti, and gives his dates of birth. So that's pretty. That could be in Arlington for all I know. Somebody like that you'd think probably is in Arlington, or could be at least.
I think he is. I can't remember.
So then they, and I don't know if this was in theirs or if I just added this because this is the kind of things that were happening. Actually, they began recruiting women in World War II, and their whole thing was, join the Corps and make a man available to fight. So, they weren't training these women to be soldiers back then. They were training them to do desk jobs and things like that. Of course, we had flying aviatrix because I don't know if the Marines had them separate or if that was just an all Air Corps thing. But these women were being trained to replace men with jobs back home so the men could go fight the war. And this was in World War II. And now down here, they said, be a Marine, free a Marine to fight. That was the logo they used, or the slogan they used at that time in the United States Marine Corps Women's Reserve. And that's pretty much where they were at in that time period with as far as women were concerned. But today,
you remember the Golden Girls?
Yeah.
B. Arthur?
Yeah.
She was a Marine in World War II. Yep.
So she was a Marine Corps Reserve. I could see her.
She probably served with Lena Basilone, John Basilone's wife. That she was I think she worked at the chow hall, but
well, like they said, that they were back then, the whole idea was to free up a man so he could go fight and they could take over those jobs. So I imagine they did fill chow halls and other places like that. But today, that's not how it is. And in the Marine Corps today, if you can make it, if you can pass all the rigors, and you can be a Marine. And what's unique about this now is they're not recruiting them for the Marine Corps Reserve. These ladies are being combat trained and fight ready, and some I don't know how many yet have been deployed, but it is happening. And I couldn't pass up this. I've heard people say that if you thought a male drill sergeant was bad, you hadn't been chewed out by a female drill sergeant yet. So that I thought that was kind of a classic picture of that. That Marine recruit is catching hell for something. And then that lower corner, the reason I said combat was that's what they're involved in. The lower corner group is being trained for combat mission, some kind of combat exercise. I thought I had one more. Nope. And I do have another famous saying that the Marine Corps used, and that's the term retreat hell. I forgot to put a comma in there because there is a comma right there to give it pause. And in World War I, June 4th at Bella Woods, Captain Lloyd W. Williams witnessed the nearby French soldiers beginning to fall back under a part of that major German attack that was happening in that area. And he was told that he should retreat also by the other French, the French soldiers and some of their officers. And he's famous because what he said to them was retreat. Hell, we just got here. And the Americans the Marines dug in, and with because of their good marksmanship and everything they'd learned, they not only held the Germans off, but they prevented that attack from succeeding. So I can't remember the number, but it was several. They were outnumbered again, pretty heavily, but they were accurate enough that it didn't do any good. I mean, they stopped them. And I'll get 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines. They use that logo on their retreat. Hell is on their banner, their flag, or did I write what they actually? And they are the most highly decorated battalion in the Marine Corps.
And they were most recently, I think they're in Marja in Afghanistan, I think was where they were most recently deployed.
Well, if you
look, they'll say that retreat hell. If any time they give a speech, any officer that gives a speech in that outfit
still says that.
That's how they end their speech: retreat hell.
And that banner, if you can look at that, it's got the name of all the major battles they've been in since World War I. Yeah, I don't see anything older than that. And the last one they've got on there is Iraq. So I'm sure they've added Is Afghanistan on there? I'm sure they've added Afghanistan on there by now and any other place they've been. But I thought that was a pretty cool, banner for the Marine Corps group. And Mark, you know something about the one, don't you?
The what?
The number one on here says
that's the 1st Marine Division.
It says Guadalcanal on it,
and it's got Guadalcanal on it, and it's got the Southern Cross on it.
That's what the stars.
The stars are the Southern Cross, not the Big Dipper or something.
Right.
That hung on the wall of my house the whole time I grew up. A plaque that had that on it.
Was your dad within one of these groups within this?
He was in the 1st Marine Division.
Yeah. Do you remember what?
But he was in the 9th Combat Engineers, not the.
So now we're going to move on to something a little different, but all still part of the Marines. And nobody's commented on my name today, so. But this is where I picked it out from. And I read this book recently, or a book, there's more than one, about this horse, this Marine war horse that was known as Reckless. And she was in the Marines and I'm going to say fought, but participated in several battles, some major battles during the Korean conflict. And somebody got the idea that they used to use mules for this actually in a lot of places, and maybe still did. In fact, maybe still do in some of these mountains like in Afghanistan. But they, they didn't have anything like this in Korea at that time, and they wanted to see if they were looking for a horse to try to haul ammunition up into the mountains when they would go up for a particular weapon they were using in this case, and that's a recoilless rifle. I have a picture of it here in a minute. And those tubes you see strapped onto the harness were what carried the rockets that shot out of that recoilless rifle. This is a really good book. So if you're interested in reading something good or listening to it on Audible, whatever, I highly recommend it. I didn't know anything about this horse until I read this book, and she was amazing. The things that she did, some of them on her own volition in time, were just phenomenal. And that's what that picture, the not the picture, but the statue is her going up a ridge, and a narrow ridge was part of the battle that she was in. And Mark, I think you said she was still alive when you guys were based out in California, or your dad was the first time they
she died when we were at Pendleton. I think Dad's second to her. And we never got to meet her.
Yeah, that's a shame.
But they would load her up with rockets or rounds for the recoilless and just throw her lead over her back, and she would carry him up to the boys and then turn around and go back down and get another load.
All by herself?
All by herself. She was like my grandpa had logging horses, and you could do, like, he would cut a tree and cut the log, the butt log out of it, and hook that up to he had two big old draft horses, and just turn them loose, and they'd take them down to my uncle that was hauling them to the sawmill. And they did that trip all day long by themselves. And it kind of like that, but she was being shot at and bombed and amazing.
And she was wounded twice. I believe she got 2 Purple Hearts,
and the boys treated her just like she was a Marine, and she'd come into the hooch at night
and drink beer with them. She was treated like royalty, and it's a good story because she was actually a Korean racehorse. Oh, Dave, Race Mountain Dave Cantrell. And
she was supposed to have some Mongol pony in her.
Yeah.
Like she was part thoroughbred, part Mongolian war horse or whatever,
And you can see that she's not a huge horse. She's not the size of our thoroughbreds. But over there, the guy that owned her originally had just started racing her, and she was really good. And these guys actually went to that area looking for something, a different horse, a cheap horse, if you will. They weren't looking for something of this, this lineage or anything, and they just kind of lucked out. But she was the same way. The guy that owned her said she was like that as he knew her. I mean, she did things on the racetrack that were just kind of intuitive or smart. She was an intelligent horse, if you want to say that. I've got a couple things because this is all important. Now, she was a U.S. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant before they officially and completely retired her. She was with the 5th Marine, 1st Marine Division, and since she didn't wear a uniform, they designed a red blanket for her to wear in ceremonies, and they even made a toy horse out of Reckless that sold during the late 50s, early 60s. That was Reckless, the Wonder Horse, or they called her a couple different things. But in fact, down at the lower one, that might have been her first.
How did Disney not make this into a movie?
I don't know, because this would have been it would be a great movie. It'd still be a great movie. And I don't know. I don't know how they missed this one.
I wonder if you can find one of those toy horses.
I don't know, but it's cool. I had pictures of them in the box.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think it was Mattel that made them, and they made them with her blanket, so that you could, she would have her all of her medals and stuff on it. And she had a whole row of medals, as you can see there.
But that would have been right down Walt's alley,
Yeah, you'd thought so.
Making a movie about, because he did that kind of stuff.
Right. If you look in the upper right hand corner, that's the gun she carried. That's a recoilless rifle, and I think I've got a picture here, maybe on the next page, with her carrying one. And down at the lower left, if you look, that's actually during the battle, and she's standing there with the gun going off. And this thing evidently made a lot of noise when they fired it. And it wasn't a gun per se, it was a rocket. And the deal with that, the reason wanted the horse, the other reason they wanted the horse was during that time period, they didn't want the North Koreans or the Chinese to be able to. They used this rocket because it was very mobile. They move it around really quick. They'd do one or two shots from a certain location, and then they would move to another location so that they couldn't pinpoint their spot and bomb them or shoot them. So they moved around a lot, and that's one of the reasons they needed the horse, so that she could help them move from spot to spot and then haul the ammunition up. And so she was literally right there in the thick of the battles. And like I said, and Mark said, they could turn her loose, and she would literally go up that mountain and come back right in the middle of this battle. Carol says people are selling the Reckless horse toy online for about $55 now, which is probably not bad, all things considered. I mean, it's not like you can get another one.
No, I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah, I figured you would. I meant to tell you that before, because I knew that from that book. The book I read was a more recent book about her, and they talked about the horse, or the toy horse. And this blanket she's wearing down at the bottom, I think, was one of the first ones they made for her. And then they got better. They got more, just better, more uniform-like, I guess. But you can see all the stuff that was on that bottom when the 1st Marine Division. And at that time, she was just Sergeant Reckless. In fact, when she was in Korea, I think she was a corporal. And when she came home, she was made a sergeant, and then years later became a staff sergeant. And
they were actually going. They, not the Marine Corps, but the powers that be, the Navy, I think.
Yeah.
Were like, you're not bringing that horse on our ship,
right?
And the Marines convinced them otherwise. That by God, she is coming on this ship.
And they built her like a pen or a corral on the upper
You are transporting her home.
Yeah. They ordered, I want to say they ordered hay and stuff for her to get her home with. And they built an enclosure right there on the deck that she could get in, to keep her in. And her handlers were there with her the whole trip.
Yeah, I think the captain of the ship was like, well, you just need to destroy that animal.
Yeah.
She's not getting on my boat.
And they said, hell no.
And they're like, well, we'll fix that.
And they did. The Marine Corps brass was very aware of what this horse had done. And that's why some of these things were allowed to happen, because, that she had backers. She had worked and performed nobly in the line of duty, and they were, by God, not going to let her, not be appreciated for that. And this might be the last one I put of her, but I love this painting. I don't know how accurate everything is, but see her going up that hill. And that statue is of this pose, I believe, but this was accurate. In the descriptions I've read about this particular battle, they were attacking a point on the mountains that was known as Las Vegas, they called it. That's kind of how they named things in Vietnam too. And it was a Chinese/North Korean listening post or observation area or something. And it was very steep and rocky climb. And there was part of it that was real narrow. And that's the part they weren't sure about with her when she started, but she learned to navigate it and she worked it without a stumble and just would do it like you said by herself. In fact, as you can see in this painting, nobody's holding her lead; she's just going. And she got wounded 2 times in battle, and I don't know. She was just an amazing animal. I read this story and I thought, oh my God, I need a horse. Now I want a horse again. But I mean, she was an amazing, amazing horse.
Look, Diana.
Yeah, horse. And then the Marine Corps has Chesty, their mascot. I think they were maybe call him. I'm not sure. This bulldog, and this bulldog also is a soldier, and he has rank. And the current one is Chesty 16.
He's a Marine. You got to stop saying soldier. If he was in the Army, he'd be a soldier.
Okay, he's a Marine. And he's got the rank of corporal at this time, I think, unless he's still he's still a PFC. Excuse me, he may be a corporal by now because this was last year, I think. He replaced Lance Corporal Chesty 15, and the reason they had to do that was Lance Corporal Chesty was getting into a lot of trouble. Apparently, he was a little bit rambunctious, and so they retired him a little bit early. I think he was the main guy for about 4 years, that they decided to swap him out with 16, and they told a little bit. They had a little bit of history about some of these dogs that they've had over the years. They had one they busted back down the PFC because he disobeyed orders or something. He did something they told him not to do, and they busted him right down. Which I don't think he probably didn't care, but I think it's just the way the military treats their animals for the most part is, especially the Marines, is pretty well, especially if they're an important one. And I hear about a lot of war dogs being put down instead of brought back, and I know that happens, but those dogs still fight and die for our country. And then I want to talk a little bit about the blood stripe, which is this red stripe. I tried to find a good picture of it, and this was really bright. But this red piping that some of the Marines have on their dress blues, and the stripe down their leg, they basically have to earn that. And you can't wear the blood stripe, I believe, till you reach the rank of at least corporal. Or is it Lance Corporal?
No, when you're promoted from Lance Cooley to corporal, you get to wear a blood stripe.
So that's a big deal, and obviously it looks good on the uniform. And that comes from a battle they fought during the Mexican War, at the Battle of Chapultepec in September of 1847. And Mark knows a little bit more about that history than I do.
Officers shot through both legs and kept fighting.
Yeah, and it was evidently seen with blood running down both legs, and that's where that came from. So, pretty big deal. And then we got some sword talk here. We got the Mameluke sword, which is it explains that it's cross-hilted, got a scimitar-like sword, historically derived from sabers used by Mamluk warriors of Manlut, Egypt, after whom the sword is named. Egypt was part of the Roman Empire, and the sword was Ottoman Empire, and the sword most commonly used in Egypt was the same as used elsewhere in the empire. And then it gives a little bit of the core history and who gave it to them and all that. But it's got more of a curve in it than some of the other swords, and this is strictly an officer's thing. So non-commissioned officers and enlisted men can't wear this. And I think there's a couple of different versions of the hilt, but this is mainly what it is. Or maybe this is the only. Maybe this is their only version of this one. Um, I was thinking they had. I saw one for an officer that had a hand guard, but maybe not, or finger guard. But anyway, you can see it. It's got a brushed mild steel sheath, or not sheath, scabbard, and it hangs from the uniform and looks pretty sharp if you like swords. I think we all need horses and save on gas. Go back to you might be right, Dave. But anyway, they make these. These are this one. I actually got this image from a Marine Corps, the Marine Corps supply office, or where they could buy uniform parts and get things like that. And they have this sword for sale. And I think you can get them that are the officers, at least can get them that are fancier, and they often have their names engraved on the other side. I noticed when I was looking at these that they're saying right now they're backed up on engraving, so they're asking people not to request any engraving at the moment. But I thought that it's a pretty cool sword, and this is more or less the saber that they wore the leather neck protection from, right?
Well, I don't know what those pirates were packing.
Well, okay, but that was something they were said.
I'm sure it was a curved blade, a long curved blade.
And this is a commemoration of the Battle of Tripoli Harbor. And that's the officers, and I believe this next one. Yeah, this is non-com sword. It does have a full hilt or handguard. This is I thought this was just a lesser Mameluke, but it's not. It's it is the. I thought I had the actual number. It was adopted in 1859. It's patterned after the United States Army's foot soldier sword of the 1850s, but it's actually been changed a little bit since then, and I thought I had its actual name on here, but I must have cut that out.
Got a hand guard.
Yes, it does.
And the Mameluke sword's kind of a dress sword.
Yeah. As you can see, this one's not near as fancy.
And that one was probably actually carried in battle for a while.
Yeah, probably. But it doesn't have as much curve in it as a rule, and it has an official U.S. Marine part number or whatever they call it, whatever they call it. And again, they can buy these through the military supply store. That's where this image came from. I might have something else unless I changed it. Okay, wait a minute. I think all right, trying to make sure I didn't skip something. So then I finally got to what we were here to talk about, or what started this was the birthday celebrations. And these are just different cakes from different years where they, celebrated their anniversary or their birthday. And, you can see them in these two on the left, at least. You can see them cutting the cake with the sword. And the tradition there is, Mark, would you like to tell them that part? Oldest and youngest?
Well, they give the oldest Marine, the youngest Marine, the first two pieces.
Yeah. The oldest Marine generally gets the first piece. The youngest Marine there usually gets the second piece. And that's been tradition, I guess, from the very get-go.
And they always cut the cake with the sword.
Yeah.
I think it's always a Mameluke, but they might use the NCO version sometimes. I don't know. But the only one I've ever seen was a Mameluke sword.
This guy's holding on the left upper does kind of look like an
NCO sword.
Yeah, because it's got that hilt on it.
But he's it looks like a general officer to me.
Yeah, he's definitely not an NCO.
It's probably the commandant.
Yeah. So anyway, the Marine birthday is a pretty big deal. And while I was at it, I couldn't help but look at some of their posters for, you know, to recruit and I
Want action?
never, huh?
Want action?
Yeah, join the Marine Corps, active service, land, sea, and air. One of the posters has, the only service where you can be, can see action. How'd they put it? Two theaters, or I may have it on here. We'll see in a minute. I like it. I really like this one because I like this guy. He's riding a
Yeah,
Jaguar.
a Jaguar backwards in the Banana
To
Wars.
travel, adventure, and join the Marines. Enlist today for 2, 3, or even 4 years. But yeah, he's riding that backwards, so I thought that was hilarious. That's supposed to be a real poster. And I thought this one was kind of interesting too, because even then the Marine Corps was, looking for pilots. And I read two books recently by a guy who flew during World War One. Of course, he's dead now, but and I can't remember his name. Oh, well, actually, they're on my Kindle. Um, and there is a section there where he talks about Navy flyers or the naval group, which the Marines probably were flying with at that time. But I thought it was interesting that, the aviation in our military was just starting out. Um, that most of it was part of the Army. Well, actually, when I said, let me back up a minute. That guy was British, so maybe the British do it different, but they were starting to do it. But this is an American poster, and I just thought it was interesting that they put, they put a guy on a gold, looks like I guess a golden eagle, although his head's not quite right. But anyway, aviation was still very young at this point.
They were still dropping bombs by hand out the window.
They sure were.
They didn't have a window. But
And then I had, going over the top. This guy's carrying. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder how accurate that is. I've seen people shoot one of these on the tripod that it had, and it's always real floppy. I've never seen one with this brace here. Huh, that may be why they're floppy. Anyway, he's going over the top with a Lewis gun, which is a whole interesting story if you like anything about military munitions or weapons. This guy was American, and nobody over here wanted to buy his gun, so he took it to Britain, and they started putting it on everything just about. And this guy again is, come on, let's fire the last shot and end the war, wherever that. It looks like World War One to me, or one of the Banana Republic wars. His bottom picture was taken as a publicity photo, and it's just a whole group coming in off. It looks like off the water, and but I don't know if it ever actually made a poster or not out of it. But it was taken for that purpose, and it was in the, I think, the teens. So this might have been pre-World War One. Again, looking for enlistees. And then again, we had women coming in to free a Marine to fight, be a Marine, and then free a Marine. So, I guess that makes sense. And again, the Marine Corps Women's Reserve, they were trying to, recruit women to take those office jobs and, maybe cook jobs and things like that so the men could go fight. And, I suspect, this doesn't say this. Well, it's still the same thing. There's a guy flying, but they may have flown, women flew airplanes. They ferried airplanes from the factories to airfields either in or near the war zones. And so that they could be, used in combat, but they weren't allowed to fight or fly in combat, but they flew them across the ocean a lot. And I knew some women that I've known a couple of women in my career that did that, and had hundreds and thousands of hours of flight time in military aircraft during World War II because they flew a lot of that stuff over. I think we all need. Oh, that's still the same. But anyway, this was more posters for recruiting women. And then we got up to newer history, and this again has changed because now we're looking at women more as a Marine, not just an office worker. I don't know what that. Oh, that's probably her whistle or something.
Well, and even those are outdated because the women have a cover on that was a woman's cover, and now they just wear the same covers that men wear.
Yeah, true. I've seen pictures. You're right about that. I forgot. I should have put that in here. Because you can go on to the Marine Corps supply site or shop the store PX and or whatever it is called for that military side of that. Anyway, you can go look at the stuff they buy and what's approved. That's for sale. It's kind of like being a Boy Scout, going down to the Boy Scout store and picking out your new uniform shorts or something. And I put this in there because I thought this was kind of an interesting juxtaposition, if you will. These women posed for this shot, and it basically says after years of fitting in, I think now it's time to stand out or something to that effect. So these are officers, I believe, and well, at least masters, NCOs at least. But this one lady, and I think it's the Marine in the middle. She's in all of these photos, and they awarded her this. They gave her this picture so she could have it, and because she was in it. But they used her image quite a bit for a lot of things. I just thought it was interesting that she was in several. And I'm going to end today's show with the Chesty Fuller nighttime prayer. Good night, Chesty Fuller, wherever you are. And I took that out of their site, so I don't know if that's what you said or not, but I thought
that's what I said.
Okay, I was thinking somebody said you may be, but anyway, it's not. It's wherever you are, and that is the end. We'll take questions now. And it's late. I just noticed that it's very, very late. No, I mean it's late. It's late.
I'm gonna leave because I got to go do some stuff to get ready for tomorrow.
Okie doke. You do that, and I will Well, you're leaving tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I will contact you between here and there or something. Try to.
Yeah. I'll call you from a motel or something.
Okay. All righty.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for hanging in with us today, and appreciate y'all being here. And I don't know what we'll do next. Well, actually, I won't. I don't think I'll be here next week. It depends on where I'm at. I may be on the road. I'm going to go up to Mark's dad's also, and see his fam, see his mom and dad. And I'm not going to hang around for the Marine Corps birthday party, or ball, I think they call it. But I am going to hang out with him for a few days and just visit with them. We've been friends with that whole family for a long time, and so we're going to go up and do that, or at least I am. I'm not sure yet if Brenda's going to go with me or not. So that's kind of scary too. I hadn't been on a long trip by myself since before my back injury, whatever you want to call it. And anyway, so I don't know about next week. I guess I'll try to put something in Facebook, or not Facebook, on Instagram if I know for sure I'm not going to be here. And then once I get back, I'm sure I'll have trip pictures or something to put online or put in. So Everybody have a great weekend. If your favorite football team's playing, hope they win, unless they're playing Tennessee, and that would have to be. Can't remember who they're playing today. They got beat by Alabama last week. It was a good game up till the second quarter or second half, but win some, you lose some, I reckon. Anyway, bye everybody. Good night. Good day.